Once upon a time, the internet had one king of video calls. Not Zoom, not WhatsApp, not Discord. The king was Skype. And in the mid-2000s, if you wanted to talk to someone across the planet for free, you didn't say call me, you said Skype me. When your product becomes a verb, congratulations, you've officially won capitalism. But as history loves to remind us, kings who get comfortable usually lose their heads. Let's rewind. The story begins with two European tech entrepreneurs, Nicholas Zenstrom and Jonas Fries. Before Skype, they built a peer-to-peer file sharing service called Kazaa, which was basically the early 2000s version of free music, but legally questionable. The idea behind Kazaa was simple. Instead of using central servers, users connected directly to each other. Music moved from computer to computer. No middleman, no infrastructure, and occasionally, no copyright. Lawyers loved that. By loved, I mean absolutely hated it. So after constant lawsuits, the founders sold Kazaa. Then they had a realization. If peer-to-peer can share music, it can share voices. And in 2003, they launched Skype. And suddenly the internet discovered something magical. Free international calls. Before Skype, calling another country felt like paying ransom money to telecom companies. With Skype, free, which meant millions of people downloaded it immediately. By the end of its first year, Skype had over 1 million users. Not bad for a startup that technically had almost no servers. Because the peer-to-peer system meant users powered the network themselves. It was brilliant. Cheap infrastructure, explosive growth, perfect viral marketing. If I wanted to call you, I'd say, download Skype. Boom, another user. By 2005, the platform exploded to tens of millions of users. And that's when the corporate sharks smelled blood. Enter eBay. Yes, the auction website. In 2005, eBay bought Skype for $2.6 billion. For context, Skype had about $60 million in revenue and zero profit, which means eBay paid roughly the GDP of a small island nation for a company still figuring out its business model. Why? Because eBay imagined buyers and sellers would video chat during auctions, which sounds great in a PowerPoint presentation. But in real life, nobody wants to video call the stranger who sold them a used toaster. Email worked fine. So Skype became the world's most expensive, maybe this helps experiment. 4 years later, eBay admitted defeat. In 2009, they sold most of Skype to investors for about $1.9 billion, which is corporate language for, please take this off our hands. Then came the biggest buyer of them all. In 2011, Microsoft arrived with a wallet and ambition. They bought Skype for $8.5 billion. At the time, it was Microsoft's largest acquisition ever. And the internet collectively said, wait, $8 billion for a video calling app? But Microsoft had a plan. They merged Skype with Windows Live Messenger, which had hundreds of millions of users. They shut Messenger down, forced everyone onto Skype. They integrated it into Windows, into Xbox, into business software, into everything. The dream? 1 billion daily users. Reality? Things got weird. Microsoft began redesigning Skype constantly. New interfaces, new layouts, new logins. Users suddenly needed Microsoft accounts. And every update somehow made the app slower and more confusing. Imagine renovating a house every 6 months, but somehow removing the doors each time. Meanwhile, competitors quietly arrived. WhatsApp, Discord, FaceTime, Slack. And then, the final boss, Zoom. Zoom did something revolutionary. They made video calls simple. One link, click, done. Meanwhile, Skype required login, contacts, updates, possibly a spiritual ritual. When the COVID-19 pandemic forced the world into remote work in 2020, video calls exploded. This should have been Skype's greatest moment. The company that invented internet calling, the pioneer, the original king. Instead, Zoom conquered the world. Because Skype had spent a decade redesigning menus instead of dominating the market. By the early 2020s, Skype still had users, but the cultural dominance was gone. It wasn't the default anymore. It wasn't the verb anymore. Nobody said Skype me. They said, send the Zoom link. And just like that, a tech giant quietly faded into the background. Not bankrupt, Not dead, just irrelevant. Which might actually be worse, because Skype didn't fail because the technology was bad. It failed because it stopped leading. While the market exploded with new apps optimized for gaming, business, messaging, and mobile, Skype stayed stuck in the middle. Too corporate for friends, too clunky for business, too late for innovation. It had the first mover advantage, the brand, the users, the technology, and still managed to lose the crown. Because in tech, being first doesn't matter, being fastest does. Skype built the kingdom of internet communication and then left the gates open, while everyone else walked in and took the throne.